Good morning, everyone. This is Kim Fleming, Professional Development Specialist with Cornell Cooperative Extension. We're just doing a little sound check before we get started right at 9:30. You're here for Crucial Conversations for Cornell Cooperative Extension. We'll be muting participants just because we are expecting a lot of people to join us today, but we'll also have the opportunity to promote some interaction. Okay. If you do want to communicate with us, we'd ask you to communicate through the chat box in the WebEx webinar. So hopefully you've all joined us on the WebEx webinar. You can see down in the chat, you're welcome to send a note to us. If you see the Send To button in the chat box on the right side of the screen, you'll see that you can write to the host. But if you click the drop-down button there, you can also write to all attendees or all participants, and that'll get your questions or your comments so the whole group can see that. And we do want to hear from you today, so we'll encourage that. We'll also ask you to mute your phones just in case our mute isn't working, and when you do want to speak to us, you'll have to just unmute on your side also. So it sounds like we've got that under control, a little background noise there. And it is 9:30, and we want to welcome you to Crucial Conversations for Cornell Cooperative Extension. I guess if you can't hear, you're not able to chat, but if you're able to hear us loud and clear or need to be a little bit louder, let me know that in the chat box, and we'll see what we can do to adjust the sound. But I'm very thrilled about the webinar today. As you know, I've sent out a few emails, and we actually picked up 10 more people at least. We also know there's a few staff groups out there, so we encourage your team participation as Jim is going through his presentation. Jim Sheridan is a senior management consultant with the Office of Organizational Development for faculty and staff here at Cornell. And he's very well known, I think, throughout Cornell Cooperative Extension and Cornell University. And you don't want me to say any of this, do you? But is very well known as just a wonderful presenter, does a lot of face-to-face workshops here on campus, and we're thrilled to get him to try this new format, working through webinars. Yeah. And I'm going to turn it over to Jim. He can tell you a little bit more about himself and go on with the presentation, Crucial Conversations. Thanks for being here, Jim.
Thank you, Ken. Thanks very much. I've been with Cornell a little over 10 years after having worked in corporate for 22 years. And the work I do at Cornell is primarily face-to-face training. This is actually my first webinar that I've participated in. And not only am I participating, now I'm the presenter. So thank goodness you're here, Kim, to kind of make things run smoothly as much as we can. I am usually in face-to-face kind of training with people doing Turning Point or Handicraft on campus. I have done development programs around supervisory training and so on with some of the folks in Cooperative Extension, and I was able to present a couple times to large groups of educators at different times. So some of the names I saw on the list I recognized. So hello to all you folks out there. So the Crucial Conversations presentation I'm about to do with you all actually came about as a piece of what we have called the Management Academy here on campus for folks who may manage other managers or manage large scope kinds of projects. And the Human Resources group on campus has a development wing that likes to hear about different things that are of use to them, and they asked us to kind of pare that down, that Crucial Conversations program, to a shorter format, and this is what I'm presenting here today as a result of some folks from Cooperative Extension coming to that session. And as we go today, I'm sure I'll make mistakes, and I'll beg your forgiveness as I do that. And I will ask questions once in a while and hope that you'll respond as we go. So here we are, Crucial Conversations. Anytime there's a crucial conversation, there's three things going on. There are three sides of it, if you will. There's opposing opinions, there are high stakes, and strong emotions present. You dread having those conversations. You don't want to get involved in those conversations where someone will have a different opinion than you, or maybe they really aren't going to, you don't feel like they're going to listen to you, you don't feel as though they will give you the floor at all, or it's really important how things go. Those make us nervous. Whenever we put extra weight on something, we get nervous about that. And opposing opinions and high stakes can raise strong emotions, and sometimes strong emotions are just present on their own. The conversations are crucial because we still need to have them. We still need to have them go well. We know how important they are. So interpersonal exchanges, that makes it sound so easy. It's much more than interpersonal.
3 little things.
Yes. So what we're talking about, though, is having dialogue. And dialogue is an exchange of ideas or opinions on an issue. Your goal in a dialogue is to reach an agreement or a settlement in a friendly way as much as possible. When you look at it as a verb, it's discussing areas where you disagree on something, and you're being truthful with each other so that you can come to some conclusion, some resolution to an issue or a problem. Dialogue is the key to handling a crucial conversation, but there's a lot that makes it work. Dialogue differs from what we typically think we do in handling important conversations in a couple ways. When we're doing dialogue, we give up the goal of convincing people. We're actually giving away a lot when we decide to do dialogue. We give up the urge to stay silent about our opinions on things. What we decide to do is focus on creating meaning that everyone creates together. We decide to understand everyone's point of view. We give up the goal of convincing. We decide not to be silent so that we can add to the pool. Therefore, we're taking responsibility for getting everything that's in the room, everything in the conversation into that pool, even when there's disagreement. And that's an important factor. We have to decide that that's what we are going to be okay with when we decide to do dialogue. This is right from the book on crucial conversations, and it's the model that really points out what's going on whenever we're in an emotional situation, in a tough situation. And we're going to explore each of these a little bit more deeply, but if you look at it, what we're going for, we mentioned already, is a pooled share of a meaning where we all understand everything that's going on in the situation. In order to get that, we need to develop a sense of safety with one another, that we can say hard things, that we can give opposing information, that we can maybe sometimes let our emotions be heard and still have it be okay. On one end of outside of safety, what's going on is silence. Another end is violence. When we're doing silence, we're withholding things, we're avoiding saying our opinions, we're maybe not telling the whole story, or we're trying to hide our opinion in what we call masking here. Silence types of behaviors don't add to safety, and if we don't feel safe, those are typical behaviors we'll have. Also, could be violence. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be physical violence, although sometimes that's what we fear. Here it's around controlling, labeling, or attacking. Aggression, beyond assertion, where people are really trying to step over you, step on top of your thoughts. So when there's a situation going on, we are seeing and hearing things, we're telling the story, we're feeling a certain way, and we're acting a certain way. Others are doing the same thing. They're seeing and hearing what's going on, they're telling themselves a story about it, they're developing feelings around that, and they're deciding to act a certain way. They can do those things and decide to act in silence or violence. They can decide to build safety, or most importantly and most effectively, figure out what we mean together in the situation. So I'm wondering, have you seen this before? What are your reactions to this model? Do you need to unmute or anything?
So we've got everyone unmuted. You want to jump on the phone or put something in the chat box, do that, but about the model. Be here to chat with everyone during difficult, often during difficult performance issues.
Yeah, when there's dialogue or someone performing in a particular part, we have our story. We make up our story, and we get worried about how we're going to have that conversation. How do you establish safety without trust? That's a piece. Sometimes we have to trust, even if we're not completely there. We have to decide, all right, I'm going to be the one that does the trust here. I'm going to be the beginning trust here. So I can't tell everybody. Looks like a lot of people are Can we stand up?
Yep, you can actually make this smaller.
Want to try that?
And, sure. Tracy,
People are having a hard time hearing feedback.
so I'm gonna mute people again
Okay.
because I think we're some feedback
All
here.
right, that's the problem. And when I'm doing this
Mute
arrow,
all.
does that show on the screen for everybody?
Your arrow, no.
Okay.
No, but you can curse on the chat. The other chats that have come in, Jim, are, you got the question. Bev is saying with all this going on, it's amazing every conversation isn't challenging. That's really true.
Yeah, everyone can be with so much change and with everyone being afraid, or many people being afraid of the situations they're in. It can be challenging. And sometimes simple performance conversations turn into challenging, crucial conversations where you just want to let someone know, hey, you're a little off track here, can you get back on? They get all worried. And so it is difficult. And I think that being mindful of that, calling it a crucial conversation will help you do a better job when you actually need to be in the room on that conversation. All right, well, let's see if I can get my cursor where I want it. It doesn't want to go over.
Okay, so we've got everyone muted. I think we're just, because others aren't muted on their end, we got the feedback that way.
This isn't want to go where it's supposed to go. I want to click the slide ahead and go ahead.
Huh.
It's not responding. You'll see it won't go where you tell it to go.
Nope. Here. Did I flip it around?
You might have.
Thank
but
you. Upside down. Upside down. Try that, Jim.
Oh,
they
boy,
didn't see that.
That was really good. So here, getting ready for dialogue then. There's your brain under normal circumstances and your brain under the stress of a conflict situation. They're totally different pieces of your brain. When we're doing our best work, we're operating from the prefrontal lobe. That's where you're in a really rational place. Your emotions are positive. You're resourceful. That's another way of looking at it. You're able to do higher level thinking, problem solving, analysis of situations. Be friendly, hear opposing points of view, and consider that there might be something in there that's worth looking at. And that's when we come to work. We're typically, that's what we bring with us. And most of the time, I think, even people that you might consider tough to deal with, I think they come to work thinking, I'll be good today. I'll do my best work. But when we get stressed or conflict or you're worried about something, we go to the limbic reptilian brain. The fight or flight mechanism kicks in there. The idea that I need to do something to survive here. I'm under attack. And when we're in the office or in the workplace, we are not allowed to attack. Out in the jungle, you could beat the snot out of whatever is attacking you and physically. But here at work, and in society in general, that's frowned on. And so we still get all the chemicals that our body gives us that enable us to do the fight or flight. We get adrenaline so that we can be faster and stronger. We get endorphins, which are morphine, so we can take the pain of things. While we're in the office, we're getting those chemicals, and we now have no outlet for the anger, the fear, the worry, nor to burn off those chemicals. So I'm wanting us to understand that this place, the brain under normal circumstances, the neocortex, if you will, is where we want to stay. Under tough situations, our brain, our body just wants to go to a fearful place. So going back to that earlier model and dissecting it a bit, when we're in a situation, this is the path of action we take. We see and hear things. We quickly make up a story about what all that means. We determine our feelings, and then we act as if we have it right. This all happens in nanoseconds, in the blink of an eye. Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called Blink, and in that book he talks about how we make judgments, we make decisions, and we do it all in the blink of an eye. And it's based on the situation we're in, what we're seeing here, and then all of our experience bringing to bear on that. Our experience includes how we feel about things, and then we act as if we've got that correct. The other person's doing the same thing. So our stories then create the emotions we create our own stories. And that really is something that it's key to know. Our stories create our emotions, and we create our stories. You've probably all heard that who we control most in the world is ourselves. We really can't control others. A lot of times our emotions cause us to think we can control others. Here, this is a reminder. We are the ones in charge of our own emotions because we are the ones who create their own stories. But our body won't let us do that quite often. We go right back to that place where we're in reptilian brain, letting our emotions drive us. And not even our emotions, but just the sense of survival that we need to have. So first we see or hear something. Let's say you're working on a report, and your boss checks up on you 3 times in an hour, offering suggestions, saying, hey, why don't you try this? So here's a good idea. So you're seeing and hearing that. What do you think the story you're going to make up is? Probably something like this. Yeah, they're questioning my capabilities. They don't trust me. They don't think I can do this by myself. They don't think I have what it takes. And that's a negative story we start to tell ourselves. So how does that make you feel? You might feel hurt and defensive. You might start getting angry. The boss doesn't know what you can do. They don't see what you've done in the past. They don't value what you're bringing now. You can see how simply your boss stepping in, saying, how's it going, giving an idea, all of a sudden makes you think your boss is a horrible person, and then you act on that information. You might hold a grudge. You might withhold information. You might just go silent. You might dismiss things your boss tells you in the future, all of which turn into negative things. Now, it is possible to see and hear something and go, here's my story, it's positive, and I feel pretty good about that, and so I'm going to act that way. But most of the time when we're feeling stress, we're not feeling positive about things. So we go right back to that limbic reptilian. See how many times this guy shows up?
Yes, great.
He's there a lot, and when it's not us, maybe it's the other person in the conversation. And then the other person in the conversation could say something, and then we go to a reptilian brain as well.
Sure.
Here's a model around conflict that really makes sense of how people typically want to be in a conflict based on that map that we looked at earlier. You see it here, you tell a story, you feel and you act, and you've kind of trained yourself to act in one of these 5 ways. As a controller, an avoider, an accommodator, a collaborator, or a compromiser. If you look at this graph, you can see along the bottom is concern for personal goals on a scale of 1 to 10, and a concern for relationships on the left-hand side on a scale of 1 to 10. If someone is an avoider of conflict, and therefore they won't have these crucial conversations, they generally have low concern for the relationship. I'm not going to worry about building a relationship with that person. It's just not going to do it. And I'm also not going to worry about getting my goals met or getting the goals of the organization met. So avoiders don't build relationships. Avoiders don't get stuff done. They don't get it done for themselves or the organization. If you're going to be very concerned for relationship and not very concerned for getting goals met, you're probably an accommodator. Accommodators make sure that other people are okay. Even that aggressive person or that person you don't really get along with, you're going to say, whatever you need, sure, go ahead. I'll give you the floor. Yeah, I don't care. Great. And you start not getting your goals met. That can really lead to some tough behaviors later where you're feeling put upon, you're feeling hurt, you're feeling like you're never able to give your information, you're not able to tell your story, you're never being able to be respected. And if that's your way of being most of the time, that's a likely outcome. It's not to say that sometimes you shouldn't be an accommodator, but those should be a choice you make, and it should be relatively short term. Another way of handling conflict is to say, well, I'm not even going to worry about this relationship. I'm going to focus mostly on controlling or winning in this situation. And so your concern for your personal goals or your goals in your organization are what's driving you. And you're not paying attention to the interpersonal relationships that it takes. You're not going to handle the crucial conversations. You're just going to bulldoze over people to get goals met. Quite often, we work on compromise. Compromise is kind of a, well, some of your stuff and some of my stuff, and we're doing okay. Our relationship's okay. Sometimes we both get what we need. Sometimes we don't get either of us all that we need, but we think it's the best course of action. And compromise can be good ways of getting things done, but in the long term, even compromises can fall apart unless they're well tended to and managed. What works most often and why crucial conversations becomes pretty important is the desire to be a collaborator where everyone wins in terms of the relationships we have. We're working hard as we can to make those strong. We're good together. We might not always be best friends. We don't hang out after work, but we can work well when we're at work together, and we care about how we're doing, respect one another, we create safety for each other, and our concern for our personal goals or organizational goals are equal. We are working together on those. Even when we might not agree all the time, we're figuring out how can we meet our goals. So to be a collaborator, which by the way is considered the best place to be in this model, we need to really get our arms around how do we have those conversations when the stakes are high, when the emotions are high, and when there's likely to be opposing points of view. When there are crucial conversations, we tend to get defensive. We want to be right. We want to look good. Whatever we can do to keep harmony, we'll work on. We like to win when we're in defense. We will blame others for what they're bringing to this. It's not us, it's them. Or we might just avoid the conflict altogether, and therefore nothing gets resolved. When we're defensive, by the way, we're in reptilian brain. We're not able to be too rational, and so we don't think about the implications when we're doing the be right and the win and the avoiding conflict piece. When we're in dialogue, our goals are to learn the other point of view, to together find out what the truth is, to come up with some results, in other words, get those goals met, and strengthen relationships. So this dialogue skill is important in being a collaborator in a conflict, or just when you're not in conflict. But when you're in conflict, we have to remember that. How are we doing on questions? Do we have questions yet?
Oh, looks like something popped. We did have a question back with the trust question that you had answered, that Beth asked us when the lines were a little confusing. So,
okay.
But I think that'll come up a little later in the model.
Yep, good.
So we'll address that then. Tracy's saying this is interesting, as I can see a real alignment with parenting styles, interactions in the parent/child relationship. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that's a great thing about crucial conversations, is it can be used in your personal life and your professional life.
Yeah, when I was, my kids are all in their, well, one's just turned 30, the rest are in their 20s, but when they were small, it was less important for me to not control. I could control, say, get in the car, we're going to Grandma's, everyone get in the car. And they said, I don't want to. I said, get in the car anyway. Because they were the kids, the little guys, they ended up doing that, and that was my dad thing. But now that they're in their 20s, I'm the dad, but I'm not that same dad. I have to really think about how I say things, because they're going to think of me as dad.
The win-win situation.
Yeah, go for the win-win. They're young adults now. And so these 7 steps can help you think about how you're going to manage those crucial conversations, whether it's at home or in work. Start with the heart. Learn to look. Make it safe. Master your own story. State your path. Explore others' paths. And move to action. So what do we mean by start with the heart? Ask yourself what you really want. What's at stake? What is important to me? Why does this matter? What is it I really want? Be in touch with that. And then learn to look. Ask yourself whether the conversation is going defensive or if it's more of a dialogue. Notice for yourself, am I being defensive or am I doing pretty good on dialogue? Notice the other. How are they doing? If they stray into defensiveness, you might just notice that and say, I think we moved away from our purpose here where we're having a conversation. Or, wow, I noticed myself forcing my ideas on you. That's not my intent. Let me back up a little bit, and can I start again? Can I start over? Notice what's going on, name it, and move on from there. Making it safe. Another way to deal with defensiveness is to make it comfortable by apologizing or asking a question that shows interest in what they're saying, or even taking a time out. So, hey, I feel like I'm not able to listen to you right now, and I want to, so give me a second. Or, here's a question about what we just said, so I'm looking like I really want to understand, as opposed to, usually we ask questions that are really statements. We're telling someone we disagree with them. And really we should form questions that are true questions asking for information, so if someone gave us the information, we would learn something. And taking a time out, Yeah, good idea. I'm a little worried about timeouts because sometimes we take timeouts as a way of avoiding having the conversation. This timeout is, wait a second, I just got to gather myself. We're going to come back to this. Not, yeah, let's take a 5-week timeout so we don't have to deal with it. Let's not talk about this till next week, hoping they'll forget to talk about it. That's not our goal there. Master your story. Focus on what happened when you, in that situation that made you feel that way, or whatever way you're feeling. Think through your emotions and then choose the way to respond. This is what makes us human. This is the difference between the guy with the headset on being logical and the gorilla. Now, gorillas can use tools, gorillas can communicate, gorillas are social animals, but they're not really careful about how they do all that interaction all the time. Here's where we can do the difference. As human beings, we're able to say, I want to really just yell like crazy and choke that person. But we can take the pause and say, but I'm not going to do that. Here's what I'm going to do instead. So we still have the feeling, but we can pause and then say, here's my response instead. Here's my considered response. I'm going to choose dialogue over something less useful. So then when stating your path, you share your facts and your conclusions so the other party can see where you're coming from. So here's what I know, and here's what I think it means. I'll let the other person know that up front. When you do that, they're likely to want to start sharing their path, maybe not in the most elegant way, but be ready for that and give them the floor and do some listening, because that's the next step, exploring others' paths. Find out what they're thinking. They will quite often tell you what they're thinking after you tell them what you're thinking. If they don't, you can say, so what do you think of what I just said, or what is your thought on this? Invite them to share their ideas, and then you start looking for areas in that where you agree. There may be a lot of places you don't agree, but start looking for places where you do agree. And then you move to action by figuring out what do we agree on here about what should happen. And document who will do what by when and settle on a way to follow up. This is a great, the who will do what by when is a great planning tool, even if you're in a rational place all throughout a meeting.
Right.
Like, who's going to do what by when? Because now we know the meeting's over, here's the summary of action that we're going to have after that. 7-step primer, start with the heart, learn to look, make it safe, master your story, state your path, learn about others' paths, and then move to action.
And Jim, I've got a couple of comments here. James had written in saying the first one can be really tough, that start with the heart can be very tough, and sometimes what people want in a conversation is to win. So I think it's going back to that dialogue piece. It's going back to dialogue piece, going back to the conflict model I showed, and deciding to be a collaborator. And if you decide to be a collaborator, you're thinking, I'll get my turn. I might win if I get my turn. I'll never win if I force my turn, or I'm not likely to win on the relationship side if I force my turn, and then I hurt the possibility to win later by creating a lot of people who don't want me to win in any situation. And so it's a decision you make to be a collaborator. It is tough. It is tough. A lot of times our own purposes are honorable, and we don't often give the same to the others and think theirs aren't honorable. Right. And a key to start with the heart is know what you want, and assume that they're going to be honorable, and even though they might not be very elegant at it. Right. I think a comment with the 7-step primer is this is you. You can't control what the other person is doing, and if they're starting with the heart, but I think with James' concern about how hard that number 1 is, make sure you're not in it to win, but you're in it for a productive dialogue.
Really good. Yeah, exactly, James.
And then James also mentioned that the tone of voice is very important as you're going through these, that as you're having that dialogue.
James, you're absolutely right.
Right on.
And actually doing the planning, doing the thinking allows you to choose the right tone of voice.
Absolutely.
As opposed to letting your emotions choose your tone of voice for you.
Right.
Where if it's a negative emotion, it will be a negative tone of voice for sure. Yep, be planful. Good job, James. Mutual purpose then goes right to that point. What we're trying to do is create safety by sharing other people we care about their best interests and goals. And so when we know what our purpose is, we also want to, as we form that, we want to also say to ourselves, and part of my purpose is to know the other's purpose, and to let them know I'm interested in knowing that. More often than not, and this is an interesting statement, your goals will be compatible, but your strategies you develop to meet the goals might be different. And so, at work, We both want to produce a really good training program. In my case, we do a lot of design of training programs. And you know, doing them online is not my experience, and doing webinars is not the way I typically do them. And I really think being in the room with people is the best way to go. Let's say I'm talking to Jennifer Fonseca, and she's going, no, this whole program could be totally online. It'll give people, they can do it off hours, when on their own time. They could really dig deep into the information, take it at their own pace. A lot of good reasons to do that, and I'm thinking, no, that's the wrong way. Well, actually, in both cases, we're choosing a different way of meeting the goal of an excellent training program. And so if we can find that we both are, in terms of our work, wanting excellent training programs, that allows us to say, well, at least we're on the same page there. How do we go from here? So the effects of mutual purpose, then, you can't have a good dialogue until you decide for mutual purpose. Without it, without the idea of mutual purpose, people withhold meaning. In other words, they're not going to really tell you what they're thinking. Mutual purpose is the foundation of trust, and in order to do a crucial conversation, you have to work to build it, and that's moving people from that outside danger zone into the safety zone. You got to go to the safety zone first before you can go into mutual purpose. The things you do, the things you decide to do as a resourceful person will help you get there. So those 7 steps will help you prepare to build this sense of mutual purpose and invite people to contribute. And when they do contribute, we appreciate that they contribute, as opposed to argue with what they contributed, or by our tone of voice let them know we didn't agree. When respect is violated, you all know what happens. You can't really have a great conversation. So even going into a conversation, if you don't respect the person, it's going to be really difficult, because you're going to just say, I don't know why I'm bothering. Well, entering into the crucial conversation because the stakes are high, because emotion is present, because opposing points of view will be there, but the stakes are high enough that we need to have this conversation, I'm going to have to start giving respect. And when I give respect, I get more. Because once respect is violated, safety breaks down, and you can't have the crucial conversation. The trick is to demonstrate respect, to build in behaviors that look like respect, to show the person what you would like when you're being respected, and you know you're being respected, give that back to that person, even though it may be hard for you to do. Here's some things that do ruin mutual respect. Debating or surrendering, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. When someone says that, respect is lost. Sure. Pouting, hurling insults obviously would wreck respect, but the sense that there might be hidden agendas, accusing people, all these behaviors listed here, people can pick up on all your intent behind those, even if they seem subtle. Even if you say, oh, I'm just debating this, good debate here. Depending on your tone of voice, depending on the kinds of questions you ask, people can read into that you're actually not respecting their point of view. A good way to demonstrate respect is to point out to them what you understand from what they've done. So building safety or rebuilding safety, you need to have mutual respect. When there's a clear problem in that respect being built, you need to apologize for your piece of that. And this might be hard because a lot of times we're thinking, it's their fault. It's their fault. And maybe they are bringing something to that. But I want us to notice, well, what am I doing that's causing them to do that? It's a lot of work on our part, and a lot of us giving away that ego, I guess, that we tend to want to bring. And when there's misunderstanding, we need to point out the contrast in the misunderstanding. With mutual purpose, we have to create it. We have to do contrasting. And we're going to talk about contrasting as a tool and give you a chance to think about what that would look like in your work a little bit. But why is safety at risk? Safety is very fragile.
Absolutely.
Very fragile. Going back to that book, Blink, once again, Malcolm Gladwell points out how we can build a lot of trust up, and then some little thing will happen that will make us remember 5 years ago when they were not trustworthy, and all the trust we built up in our emotional bank of trust with them just funnels out the bottom of a bucket. And we have to always be on guard, particularly where we have relationships that aren't as strong, and we need to build them stronger. Some people we can let down and they'll forgive us forever.
Right.
But not everyone.
Yeah.
So contrasting statements, very, very good tool. A tool to address predictable misunderstandings. It's done first by imagining what others may erroneously conclude. Imagining. Yeah, you're not in their head, you can't be them, I get that. But from what I know, what could be possibly going on for them? What are they thinking? What are they concluding? And that line of something happens and we make up a story and then we have feelings and then we act. What's their line? What's my best ability to look at that line? And then immediately explain that that is not what you mean. Followed by your contrasting point. In other words, what you do mean. So here's what you do, right? Something's not going right. I bet they're thinking this. Boy, I'm going to tell them right now that's not what I mean. If that's what you're thinking, that's not what I mean. Here's what I do mean. Contrasting statements. It's a do or a don't and then do statement. So that's the formula. A don't and then do. Contrasting is a don't do statement that addresses the other's concerns that you don't respect them or that you have a malicious purpose. The don't part. And then it confirms your respect or clarifies your real purpose. The do part. So what does this look like? Here's an example. Let's say you and a friend had decided to get together at a certain time, and your friend gets there about 30 minutes after that time. So you might say, I notice when you arrive after the time I thought we agreed upon, I get worried and frustrated, and then I don't seem to enjoy our time together as much as I would like. There's the don't part. I really do value our time together and don't want this to come between us. Okay, so what you don't, I notice this, and I don't enjoy our time when you're late as much as I like. I do value our time together. I don't want this to be a problem. So you say that. They might say, oh, yeah, I try to get here on time. I can't help being late. Are you saying I did it on purpose? Why would I do that to a friend? Can't you just accept me as I am? We're friends. Typical, I would think. They might say that. So you're, again, going to do don't and do. I don't want to suggest that you do this deliberately or you don't care about me. What I do want is for us to work out a way we can meet up so that neither of us is left waiting for more than 10 or 15 minutes. So I wonder if people could let us know what they think of this tool. Is there a way for people to give me a sense of...
Should we have them enter in the chat what you think of the contrasting tool? Is this something that would work for you? Have you tried it? Do you use it? We've got a lot of skilled communicators on the line and out there. So what do you think of contrasting? If you could put that right into the chat. Jim, I think you can scroll right in that mid box of the chat box right there. If you press that down button, you'll get your last chat there. Now go up a little so you can, it's really smushed on the screen.
Can you make that box bigger?
I thought we could, but I think if you hit attendees, I think you can, that down button, it'll close your attendee. There you go. Does that give you any flexibility to move that up?
No. Okay, so Margaret says that it does work, but you really have to put your ego away. Boy, I agree with that, Margaret. Yeah. What else? It's an effective tool for communication. It works well, but one needs to be open-minded. That's true as well, Tracy.
Working for you?
No blaming in the response, which is good, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. It does work. You really have to put your ego away. Came back again, yeah. That's a great deal when you do not have face-to-face contact. Any thoughts on that?
Well, this was a question on the technology and not always being face-to-face and working through technology. How does this compare, any of the crucial conversations? Any observations, any thoughts?
Boy, if you're on the phone with someone or even Skyping or on a webinar or WebEx meeting, it's a little easier to see the face even if there's some kind of weird delay that you get in some technology. But you can tell in someone's tone of voice, and that's going to be your key thing, particularly on the phone. And you also need to do a lot more checking in to make sure you understood. Sounds like you're a little worried, or sounds like I just upset you, or you're being kind of quiet right now. Can you tell me what's going on? So you do a lot more of those check-in things to make sure you're tracking well with the person.
I think email's a good example of that,
email.
where one statement can really go, if you don't pause and wonder what did they really mean, or even ask what did they really mean.
Yep.
It could go totally the wrong way by,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yep.
Got another one in there?
Yeah, so someone mentioned, who was it, Crystal, trying to give the person the benefit of the doubt is really hard when it's something they keep doing. Yeah, it is hard. I appreciate you saying that it's really hard, because this whole thing is kind of, well, really hard. And we're deciding that it's important enough that we're going to give it all the effort that it takes. But that's what works for me. Yep, she's right. It works for most people who decide to do it. So,
I'm not sure if you got James' comment. My friends would tell me that I use this technique on them, though I see how this can clearly work with the right crucial conversation. So,
yeah.
If you're a practiced communicator, I think that happens.
Yep. And, you know, as much as sometimes people don't like us techniquing them, they pretty much appreciate that we got what they're going for.
That's true.
And I'd rather technique somebody than have it go badly.
Avoid them.
You know, and as James, I'm sure, knows, and most of the folks on the phone know, the more you practice something, the better you get at it, the more natural it sounds.
Absolutely.
But when you're going to enter into a tougher conversation, elegance might not be the main driver. Okay, great. So what I'd like you to see is how one just might look in terms of how could I start with a contrasting conversation. Yeah. So here's an example. I don't want you to think that I don't notice the amount of work you're putting into the new course. I do appreciate how you're making contacts in the community so our students can enjoy the work experience. I am concerned, however, that the assessment task is not capturing all the outcomes of the new subjects. Can we work out a way to update the tasks? So, first off, I think I don't notice the work you're putting in. I mean, that goes a long way in saying, okay, I get it, you're working hard, and I appreciate that. In fact, I do appreciate, here's specifically something I appreciate. And I am concerned on something. And this is a statement of problem, right? Can we work out a way to update the task? That's a problem statement. If you can get someone to be in rational brain, and that's a problem statement, they can go, and they might actually make up a story like, you don't think I'm updating the new task? But they can check their story and go, no, that's probably not what he's saying. He just wants to know, right? They give you the benefit of the doubt. If they're good at dialogue, or they might give you the benefit of the doubt, and they can say, all he wants to know is some ideas I have about updating the task. Okay, I can do that. Both of those can happen in a rational brain. So what I'd like you to do is think about a time you could have used contrasting in a crucial conversation, or think of a conversation you need to have, and how you could use preventive contrasting to begin the conversation. So take a few minutes, 3 minutes or so, and write a contrasting statement that you can use, and be ready to share a couple of those with us. Go ahead and do that. We'll take a pause.
So it's 10:11 on the computer. Just take a 2 or 3 minute little writing session, or if you're there as a group, you can also practice this with somebody that you're sitting next to, which is what we would normally do in workshop.
Yeah.
unmute it.
Okay, does anyone have one they'd like to share with us? You could write that in the chat box.
Yep, if you want to say it out loud, tell me and I can unmute you. It seems to not work that we can unmute the whole group. It got a little choppy last time, so if you've got one you want to say out loud, we can unmute, or you can put that right into the chat box to all participants. I'm sure they're carefully crafting it still.
Yes, yeah, and that makes you wonder, could I actually say this out loud? It takes me all the time to write one. How could I actually think of one in the middle of a conversation?
That's true, and then to share one.
Yeah.
You may just also keep it in your back pocket. I was thinking with this practice as I was going through the slides yesterday, this would be kind of handy to think about. This is something I've been avoiding. Let's think about going in with some type of contrasting statement to get a conversation, a safe conversation going.
Yeah, I think it's a great way. The whole concept here is a great way of planning for how it might go. I'm going to have this conversation tomorrow. How might it go?
Right.
What's my story? What am I likely to feel? How will I act when I get all that? What's their story? How are they gonna feel? What will I do to make them so they feel like they're safe?
Right. Right.
That type of thing. One of the things that really does build safety is demonstrating to someone that you're understanding them, that you're there for them. So you do that with all the body language that we all know about, the positive attending types of body languages, as well as really demonstrating that you're listening and not being judging what they're saying. You're just trying to understand. As St. Francis and then Stephen Covey said, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And if we have that attitude going in, then we'll be able to build safety much more quickly. All right, I'm going to completely give them, the other person, every opportunity to help me understand their story and their issue. Okay, so we've got to a young adult child from Karen English here. Congrats on your job search so far. I can see the effort you're putting in. Is there a way you and I can talk about it so I can offer feedback about without you feeling controlled or diminished? Feedback, welcome. Yeah, so it's a pretty good start. I really,
To a young adult child.
Yeah, so with a don't do, you'd say, boy, I really don't want to make you feel controlled or diminished. What I do want is for you to feel like I'm being helpful. And so you have all the components in there.
Yeah.
Cheryl, yeah, choosing your words also helps. It's a bit planful, and you also might plan what are some positive words I can generally use.
Right.
So, what words will I put in my vocabulary? So make a list of words that are going to be considered safety kinds of words. Yeah, to be nice at the beginning of the conversation when I want to approach a less than nice subject. So, that when I read that, Linda, I'm thinking, I want to set a tone that this is going to be logical, friendly, business-like, caring, caring for the relationship and caring for goals being met kind of conversation.
Nice matters.
Nice matters, and getting things done matters.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Very good. When you find yourself in a crucial conversation and you can't get mutual purpose, or it's just still competing, they're on the I want my goals met and you're on the you want your goals met, no one's doing interrelationship. Step out of the content, resist your tendency to avoid, control, accommodate. You saw those in the conflict model. And make a commitment to serve both your purpose and the other person's. So that being clear on your purpose is important, and then think about it this way. I'm clear on my purpose, now I need to be clear on their purpose. And so now that I'm clear on both purposes, where's the similarity? Where's the common purpose? And that's going to be up for you to define and say to people. Moving toward negotiation or collaboration, ask the other person what they want. Okay, so tell me more about what you want. What is it? What would be a good result for you? What would be the way of going about this? Ask them, and then you do a lot of listening. And when there's emotion present, a really great technique is reflective listening, where you take in what they're giving you, you make up a story, if you will, or your hypothesis about what they're saying. You come together and you say, I get it, I think they're saying this, and then you tell them. Here's what I think you're saying. when there's emotion present, that's really useful, because when you demonstrate you understand someone and their emotion, their content and their emotion, they ratchet up to rational, and their brain gets a little closer to the guy with the headset on than the gorilla. And so, something like, you really think I'm talking to you in a condescending manner. It really hurts you when I say it this way. You think I'm just crazy. And they go, yeah. Every time they go, yeah, or yes, or uh-huh, sure, right, good. Then they thought you understood them, and the more they say, yeah, right, sure, I understand, they ratchet up to rational. You're not agreeing yet, you're just shifting them. And then when they understand that you understand, then you can start looking at options again, because you're in rational brain. Something to look at, moving toward collaboration. So in stating your path then, share your facts, tell your story, ask for the other person's path. So remember the path, that's those two arrows come together toward the mutual purpose in the box. Then you talk tentatively, great word here, and encourage testing. The share your facts, the tell your story, and the ask for others' paths are what skills? That's informational stuff. The how skills are talking tentatively and encouraging testing. So there's all that tone of voice, the tending to one, other types of things. So what is it you believe is true? Share your facts. Here's what I've got. This happened yesterday, these 4 things. Boom, 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 boom. Here they are. Here's my story about that. When I see these 4 things, I think this is what's going on. How about you? What do you, with those facts? So what facts do you have, and what's your story? And then this tentatively, this talking tentatively. We're not talking as if our facts are the only facts, or our story is the only story. We're talking about, with what I had, this was my story, and I'm willing to change it if I learn some new things. I'm not going to speak as if I'm right all the time on this. Now, sometimes people in their story will give you just some crazy things, or things you know aren't true. But you still talk tentatively, and you put that tentativeness in your voice so that you're able to get the person to feel as if you're still gathering data. You're not decided yet. And it allows you to encourage testing by saying, so you say this, and I'm not seeing it that way. Here's some things I've seen that show me the total opposite of what you're seeing. Can you tell me, really? So using that, you hear the tenderness in my voice even. Can you give me more about that? Because you're still in data gathering mode. So cleverly state your path is STATE, share, tell, ask, talk, encourage. So each crucial conversation is really 3 conversations. The what happened conversation, the way you're feeling about a conversation, and the identity conversation. In the what happened conversation, there's a disagreement perhaps about what's happened or what should be happening. This is a lot of facts. This is really interesting. When they've done studies around eyewitness accounts of crimes being committed. You get 5 people in a room and see someone run in with and they've done this in police academies with police recruits. Have someone come in and stick up some, fake it, but they're coming in and do 5 or 6 things as they're doing a robbery, and they'll ask all the cadets in the room, so what did you see? And they'll get, was there a hat? No, there wasn't a hat. Well, yes, there was a hat. Was he tall? Was he short? Was he, did he have a gun? Or, and there's all the eyewitnesses have seen different things. And so that, every time I'm into this what happened piece, I'm thinking, yeah, I probably don't have the whole story. And my what happened is going to be different than someone else's. Knowing that, how can we come to agreement as much as possible on what happened? The feeling conversations, feelings that are not addressed directly, we hide our feelings, we mask them, we don't tell people how we're feeling. We're noticing that someone else is feeling a certain way. We're guessing, it's just guessing, but we're pretty smart. We're guessing they're excited, we're guessing they're worried, we're guessing they're scared, we're guessing they're frustrated, so we let them know, it looks like you're frustrated about this. And we also might be questioning, is it okay for me to feel this way? I'm feeling really anxious. Should I be feeling anxious? Is that fair? I mean, I shouldn't be anxious. How come I'm anxious? And we just start to devalue a little bit how we're feeling. And if we're having them more valid, what we want to do is say, what do I want to do about that going forward? And then the identity is a conversation we have with ourselves about what the situation means to us. So it's that stuff that's always going on in the back of our brain, even while we're having a conversation with someone else.
Sure.
What's this mean to me? How is this going to affect me? Do I have to go to reptilian brain on this one? How do I stay in rational brain? I can't believe it. I just gave her the floor, and now she's beating me up over this. That's not supposed to happen. This dialogue stuff's supposed to be better. They're not doing their part. And all this is going on back here while we're doing our best to build collaboration and give the other person our understanding. So it's 3 different conversations all happening kind of at one time.
And 2 people or more at a time.
It could, yeah, right, exactly. So it's important then to explore others' paths of action. So I mentioned the reflective listening, but just the notion of, I've said my stuff so far, or I've asked you a question, or I'm wondering what you're thinking, I've asked you to tell me what you're thinking, now we have to listen. So we ask for it, we then mirror, we paraphrase, we prime the pump for more information, asking questions that are actually open questions or closing down when we're looking for more specific data. But taking all the information from a rational place and being resourceful. Letting people know that what they're giving you is valid, or you understand that it's valid for them. That's different than true. It doesn't always end up being true, because true is sometimes our perspective versus theirs. And even where true is definitive, we don't want them to stop talking to us because we call them a liar. So there is a way that we get to say our part of the story after we understand their part of the story. The key to building mutual purpose and respect and demonstrating respect is that we give the floor to people to listen, and we demonstrate that whatever they give us, we're considering and not dismissing it. It's worth hearing, worth considering, and even when we think it's completely off base, taking that in and giving it credence to the point of, thank you for sharing it with me. What are we going to do with this information? So I want to give Jennifer Fonseca, one of my office mates, a lot of credit for her work in building this presentation, and she's also someone who does great work around managing conflict and teaching how to manage conflict. But I'm wondering if there's a way for us to spend time in dialogue around how could we use the crucial conversations in each of our offices around the state.
Absolutely.
So how do we do that?
We can open that up in the chat if you want to do that. We can also, if people want to get on the phone and what they're thinking, maybe they want to do in their local association or the team you have in the room, maybe give people a couple minutes to think about that and
Sure.
talk about that.
Yeah. I'm very willing to entertain any questions or look at scenarios.
So questions, or how do you think you'll be using crucial conversations, or how have you used crucial conversations? I think for the good of the whole, we always gain things from working with our colleagues and giving you the floor. And again, I can unchat, I can unmute you if you want to get on the phone. There's Tracy.
Yeah, Tracy mentioned of collaborative groups, building new collaborative groups with changes. Change is a great time to use crucial conversations because there's often a lot of emotion present with change. And as you're building new things, starting with collaboration is a great way to build new things more quickly that have a longer positive effect. So I agree with Tracy on that. And Beverly's saying practice, definitely. Practice, practice. Give yourself permission to be inelegant, not get it quite right. Don't beat yourself up if it doesn't go quite the way you wanted. Sure. But do the planning, do the thinking ahead. If I'm going to have a conversation with Kim where I think it could be difficult, but it's important. The stakes are high. Plan full. Yep. And it's easier if you know the people a little bit because you're going to guess how they're going to be. Absolutely. And you can be ready for how they're going to be a little bit. If they surprise you, then you'll be a little bit not too elegant at it, but they will benefit from your inelegant try. Right. I feel like I know a bit of the details, but would have gotten more of these skills become even more important when we're dealing with our volunteers. Oh, see, I imagine that's true because I'm guessing volunteers don't have to volunteer.
That's right. Volunteers can leave us anytime, so this is definitely a skill that can be used with volunteers, and we have 40,000 in the system, so we work with a lot of volunteers throughout the system.
I can also imagine that volunteers would have their own purpose for volunteering, which might not always match with the purpose of a program they're volunteering in or a change that's being made, and they're emotionally involved with their reason for being there, and we have to have a conversation with them saying it's not quite where we need it, and still have them want to be there. So I think this is critical in that.
I think that's where we go back to the whole volunteer management, the spectrum when you're setting up the expectations, being clear about that in the beginning, and also asking that volunteer what they're interested in, and then that continuous feedback through the system after you get them well oriented and trained. So it really is one big crucial conversation.
Right.
I love this topic because it ties in with so many other things that we've been working on, and many of the people on the webinar today have also been on our dealing with difficult people, or we call it understanding diverse personalities, and it goes back to that reflective listening and giving people the benefit of the doubt, and let's talk this through, and if you've got this style, we're going to have this conversation, we're going to understand what the expectations are, but also be able to handle that too. I want to also be clear about what we need from this exchange.
What you just described there again is that chart of concern for relationship and concern for goals. And we need both of those to be met. We need to have relationships so that we can get the goals met. And find that common purpose. That's what collaborators do. Collaborators, someone mentioned in their chat here, collaboration as we make changes. Collaborators use dialogue. Collaborators pay attention to how they use dialogue. They really work at it. So the practice is important. The author of the Blink book is Malcolm Gladwell. He's also written a bunch of other good books. One of my favorites he wrote is called The Tipping Point.
I like that too.
Quite a good book. All right, what else we got? So Samantha, you're right. One thing that's important for me to remember is you can only control your reactions and responses. You can't control how other person is going to respond or how they're going to feel, but you can make the interactions as effective as possible by being constructive. We can't control them, but we can influence. And we can influence their state of mind, their state of being, by the way we treat them. And think about who's influenced you in your life. Think of the person who's influenced you most in your life. Probably have a lot of respect for them. They've done something to create that environment with you where they showed you a lot of respect as well. And that's the relationship. So you might not get that same respect level of that person you just thought of with a person that's difficult to be around, but that's our goal, is to have that respect. So, feeling appropriate. I think the question that Tracy's asking, Beverly, do you think there are separate feelings that are appropriate for a business conversation versus feelings for a personal conversation? It's funny. I think it's a matter of how relaxed I can be. At work, I know I'm supposed to be in a rational brain. I'm supposed to be the guy with the headset on. And so I come to work knowing that's how I'm supposed to do it. And if I don't do it, I'm a little embarrassed to say, I shouldn't have done that. I get it. In my personal life, I guess there's room for sloppiness. Like, my wife loves me, so I can be an oaf sometimes. If I'm an oaf too many times, she won't love me anymore. So, but I do get more breaks at home. But the truth of it is, and I've learned this from my kids, as they became young adults, and I looked back on my parenting, I was wishing I did more of this type of stuff early. Because although my kids always, and I'm very fortunate, tell me they love me and respect me, it's demonstrated often, I just think that it would have been stronger had I started earlier with this kind of thinking.
With get in the car, we're going to Grandma's.
And then when they say, well, I don't want to, well, what's going on? Why don't you want to? All right, here's the thing is, we do have to go to Grandma's. I don't want you to feel like I'm going to make you do stuff you don't want to do all the time, but we do have to go to Grandma's right now. And we can talk about how we can get you other things you want to do later. Even as for me, as I look back, especially when they were teenagers, that would have been useful.
Shortcut would be get in the car, we're going to Grandma's, and then we'll get ice cream. So you probably did that.
Yeah, because I like ice cream too. But yeah, so I'd really like them to go to Grandma's because they want to.
Sure.
And yeah. Let's see.
Let's see. After Beverly was Rachel.
I would add for me this presentation remind me of the listening factor, practice. Yeah, that's so true, Rachel. You do have to practice, and so it's just going to sound silly, but you can practice in front of the mirror. You can practice with someone you trust. Hey, be George for me, will you, Kim? And have that, or you can just mentally practice it.
Yeah, I think that's the value of the face-to-face workshop and having that opportunity to really.
Yeah, and Beverly again on the things we would share in a conversation, the feelings with close friends. Absolutely, there are people we can do that with, and others we can't. At work, you might consider where am I unsafe with it, and what can I do to expand my safety zone? What do I feel safe telling people my emotions about?
Sure.
How can I increase that? Should I increase it? And if I say yes, then how can I open my window about what people know about me?
Right.
A little bit. Sometimes I find that because our environment is so relaxed, sometimes lines may get too relaxed. Yeah, that happens on really great teams too, where you forget where the lines are.
Yep.
And if you're a leader person, let's say you're hierarchically a leader, so you're a supervisor of some sort.
The executive director, like Beverly is.
Right. You want to have a collegial environment in your workplace, and you want to know a little bit about each other outside of work. You want to hang out sometimes. You like people, so you might want to hang out outside of work even. And then that gets in the way of making the tough decision. I really have to. I got to tell that person, no, you must learn the software. You can no longer continue to do it the old way. And if you don't learn the software, your job is in danger. I got to be able to tell them that, even though I like them a lot, and I know there are 5 kids, and they actually came up to camp last year with us, and all those things. It's tough, and there's why we have to keep in both pieces of that axis in mind. Sure, relationships are important, but so is the goal. And when we're running an organization, the goals of the organization do need to drive, actually the reason we have people working for us at all. And so, yeah, that balance is tough to strike. Good point,
I have a comment that came in that I think just came to me. So thank you for the webinar, and if we can have more trainings like at Ag in-service and other occasions, that would be good. We often talk in circles on difficult topics. I'm wondering if we write down all the points during discussion, if that would help.
I think it does, and so that you can do that thing that we started with earlier in the PowerPoint piece of this. Who will do what by when? So we need to keep track of the decisions and agreements. So at the end we can say, well, who's going to do what by when? Instead of, well, that was interesting, and get at it, people. It's like, well, okay, what is it, and who are the people, and when will they get it done? That's what business of any organization is about. Running results. Yeah, good point.
And you got Tracy. Working agreements. Establishing working agreements is important so that clear boundaries are set for what you agree are the rules, so to speak, for effective communication in all interactions. And we actually have done Eduardo Gonzalez has done a webinar on working agreements too. We've got some great resources on that. I think in the diversity and inclusion site, but I can find those and send those out to everyone. I think that's a great suggestion, Tracy. I know a lot of the associations are using that too, and it's just that kind of the ground rules. It's another level of ground rules.
It's so much nicer if you can, in that do part of the don't then do statement, you can say, I don't want this. I don't want you to feel hurt and angry, and I do want us to keep the agreements around this that we established. So it's already, you haven't got to redo the whole agreement. It's already the agreement, and you can refer to that. So that's nice. Great suggestion. Balancing act all the time. True. Yeah. And with dialogue like this, with crucial conversations, it's so easy to just go fast and say, just get in the car, we're going to Grandma's. Sure. And then you're on the way to Grandma's. You can do that and after a while, kids don't even like their grandmother.
Right.
So you do need to take the time.
Yep, definitely worth the time to have these conversations.
Yep.
Great.
All right.
Okay, Jim, we really appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Well, I appreciate
putting
being
the
here.
presentation together, and it really was as wonderful as Melissa Reese said it was. So.
Well, I hope it was good. I'm used to standing up and moving around.
Yes.
I'm not used to webinars. I'm used to being to see people. So I hope that you did get something worthwhile out of it, and I hope you forgive me where I was a bit klutzy.
Technology always brings a few challenges, but you were not klutzy at all. I appreciate you
Thank you.
really being here. We've got the resources. We've sent the handouts to everyone who is registered at least, so if you're with a group and want to forward those on, you may, or get in touch with me. We actually have it posted on our upcoming professional development webinars. After today, that'll be part of our past webinars, but the resource will stay there, the handout. And if you want to do more with this with your staff, let us know. We can talk about that also. So,
Splendid. Thanks, everyone.
thank you all. Re-offer this training. That's a good, good idea, James. We have recorded this as far as I can tell, so if everything worked, we'll also have this available on our website, on our staff site, under the recorded webinars. And we'll share that link with everybody, again, who's registered. So thanks so much for participating.
Thank you all.